John Lennon's appearance in the last year of his life was attributed to a combination of factors, including his drug use, poor diet, and the stress of his legal battles with the U.S. government over his immigration status. Additionally, he was dealing with personal issues such as his troubled relationship with Yoko Ono and the breakup of the Beatles. Lennon's health was also affected by his smoking habit, which he reportedly quit shortly before his death. John Lennon was very open about his emotional and psychological issues. He attributed this to his unstable childhood and the tragedy of losing his mother twice. He admitted he was a very insecure person that needed to project a rough and mean image in order to cope with it, even by the time he was a Beatle. Some appalling journalist in the mid-60s labeled John as the Fat Beatle. Ever afterwards, he obsessed over his weight, and Lennon's eating disorder developed during the peak days of Beatlemania. In actual fact, as Ringo himself observed in the Beatles anthology documentary series, the whole band put on weight at that time because they couldn't get out of their hotel room to exercise due to hordes of crazy fans mobbing them. Ringo said they were binging on drink and food during those days. Weed munchies had probably something to do as well, and Lennon was known to be a sweet tooth. Surely journalists were quick to notice Lennon's weight gain and were also mean. The whole Beatles thing was just beyond comprehension, John Lennon told Playboy magazine in 1980. I was eating and drinking like a pig, and I was fat as a pig, dissatisfied with myself, and subconsciously I was crying out for help. I think everything comes out in the song, Help. I was actually crying out for help. Most people think it's just a fast rock and roll song. I didn't realize it at the time. I just wrote it because I was commissioned to write it for the movie, but later I knew I was really crying out for help. So it was my Fat Elvis period. You see the movie, he is very fat, very insecure, and has completely lost himself. And I am singing about when I was so much younger and all the rest, looking back at how easy it was. I go through deep depressions where I would like to jump out the window, you know. Anyway, I was fat and depressed and I was crying out for help. After the short hiatus that followed the release of Revolver, it was clear that Lennon had lost a lot of weight. There is anecdotal evidence that he became very self-conscious about his looks, weight, and height, and had developed strange feeding habits, soup dieting, fasting, and limiting his sugar intake. He was also very vocal about his laziness, even writing a song about it, and dislike of exercise, so his weight loss was achieved by means of dieting instead of exercise. Also by the 1966, early 1967, John's high drug intake had impacted on him severely. George Martin gave an interesting interview around late 1967 where he discusses John being so out of it on drugs, he found him on the top of the EMI building standing on the edge. George talked him down, but realized very quickly just how out of it John was. Also, there has been much said about Yoko getting him hooked on heroin, and while that may be true, it must be noted John had tried many different illicit drugs before then. His health would not have been the best even then, and this would be perhaps the catalyst for John's rapid health decline. Keep in mind, while John was even with May Pang, he was still abusing drugs. There were rumors when John was in Los Angeles he was heavily involved in the party drug scene, so even being away from Yoko, John was still heavily reliant on drugs. Fast forward towards the end of John's life, he was on a macrobiotic diet supposedly at Yoko's insistence, which meant he didn't eat certain foods. Many had concerns for his skinny face and body, with some claiming he looked gaunt and possibly malnourished. After John had died, the medical examiner who performed his autopsy was quoted to have said John had the body of a person 20 years his senior, meaning his previous drug habits and lifestyle had taken their own toll on his body. His psychological issues and lack of control in his life might have led to an eating disorder that was exacerbated by his drug habits. And if one is realistic, John was living proof of just how much that choice of lifestyle can impact on one's life. Still, there is the possibility that he had developed a more healthy lifestyle since his son was born. Indeed, there seems to be indication of this, that led to further weight loss before his death.
Hello.
That was Ringo, folks.
Well, what can I say?
And goodbye
You
for
know.
all of us.
Well, this is Ringo. Everyone seems to have said everything here, so I'll just sign off by saying cheerio and best of luck from the Beatles.